Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the RM3790 Public Sector Water and Wastewater Framework Agreement. My name is Rob Clark. I'm the Category Business Partner at YPO, and with me I've got
Julie Braidwood, from the Head of Utilities from Crown Commercial Service.
So before we get started today on the webinar, we'd just like to go over a few housekeeping points so you know how to participate in today's event and get the most out of it. You'll join this webinar in listening mode, which means that none of your microphones are connected to us, but you will have the opportunity to submit text questions to us using the question pane of the webinar control panel you should see on the right-hand side of your screen. You may add in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will try to answer all the questions at the end if they aren't covered in the presentation. We will create a question and answer document and share it with everyone at the end of the webinar if we run out of time to answer all your questions today. We'll also be sending out an email to you all, which will have a link to make it able for you to view the webinar again on YouTube later. So, without further ado, let's begin the webinar. So I'll quickly just run through the agenda for today and everything that we will cover. So we're going to do a little bit of scene setting about why the water competition for England is significant, who the retailers are and what do they do. Then we'll move on to a section on the Public Sector Water Framework, RM3790, and what benefits this will provide you. And then we'll give you some guidance on how to access the framework and create your own competition for your water. And then, as I said earlier, right at the very end, if we've got any time left, we'll tackle some of your questions. So, moving on, why is the water competition significant? Who are the retailers and what do they do? So a little bit of background really as to why this is happening. English non-household water retail markets have just opened up for the first time to competition. Previously to the 1st of April this year, business customers didn't really have a choice over who they could choose as their water retailer unless they were consuming large volumes of water. This was enabled by the Water Act 2014, which made the call for competition. And it's a process that is being driven by DEFRA, regulated by Ofwat and managed by Mosul, which have come together to form OpenWater as a brand to deliver the new market. This will provide a choice of retailer to all non-household customers. And as I mentioned earlier, this was available to large consumers of water over 5 megalitres per annum. But now that restriction has been removed, and from the 1st of April, any business in the UK, any non-household supply can have choice of retailer. Just a note really here to say that public sector customers need to ensure compliance with all appropriate public contracts regulations. The ODU threshold for contract award at the moment is €209,000, which for this year equates to £164,176 contract value. So please remember that if you're entering for a 4-year supply contract, then that is the total value of the contract. And this framework has been built from a collaboration of the 6 large and leading public sector buying organisations. So this has been a framework that has been probably 18 months in preparation and is there for all of public sector to use. The partners in this process are Crown Commercial Service, ESPO, NEPO, Tech, West Mercia Energy and YPO. So I think it's worth pointing out at this stage some kind of definition of what a retailer actually is. So All retailers in the market are effectively brand new companies to the retail-only role. They've actually been formed either from a split of the retail function from an existing water company prior to the 1st of April, which now remains as a wholesaler only, or they are an established independent company that has never been connected to a water wholesaler. Retailers will purchase the water from the wholesaler and sell it to the customer and package on top of that their retail services. Water and sewage supply licenses, or WSSLs, had to be applied for, and retailers had to give assurances over the back office systems that they were using, any new processes and procedures to the marketplace, to ensure that there was confidence they were ready to enter the market. And what we've actually seen over the course of the last year or so is a number of mergers between water companies to provide a retail solution, and a number of exits from that new marketplace. So the key point, I guess, around this at the moment is that the market is in a state of flux still, even though it's now open, and it continues to change and will do, I'm sure, for some time to come. This is a brand new marketplace, don't forget. So even the larger established retailers, maybe, who are in this marketplace from the 1st of April, are still seeing the effects of change on them and also influencing change in the marketplace. So just to give you an example of the kind of things that we've seen so far, Thames Water, for instance, decided not to exit the wholesale market and become a retailer, and instead transferred their business customers to Castle Water. United Utilities and Severn Trent joined together to form a single retailer between them, Water Plus. But subsequently, Severn Trent have announced that they won't be looking to exit the wholesale market fully until their acquisition of Dee Valley Water completes, and that company is assimilated into the Severn Trent business. And we're expecting that to happen by June 2017. Yorkshire Water created a new retailer called 360, and then a matter of only a few weeks ago decided that Yorkshire Water weren't going to completely exit the wholesale market into 360. So 360 will focus on out-of-area customers, and Yorkshire Water Business Services will focus on inside the Yorkshire region only. And only in the past fortnight, Northumbrian Water and Anglian Water have announced the creation of a joint venture retailer partnership, which will be known as WAVE. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of the kind of changes which are taking place in the marketplace and some of the approaches from some of the companies involved. So as of today, there are 20 separate water and sewage supply license holders in the marketplace, and you should be able to see on your screen at the moment a graphic indicating who these companies are. So what does a retailer actually do? Well, if we look at everything from the water treatment plant right through the meter to your business premises, the line between wholesaler and retailer kind of falls there, just at your side of the meter, essentially. So what does that do in terms of the bill cost? Well, it varies around the country, but the average is widely accepted to be 93% of the cost of your bill is from the wholesaler, and 7% comes from retailers' services. So the kind of things that the wholesaler will remain responsible for and will charge you through your bill for are things like the water treatment costs, maintaining water quality, storage of water, asset ownership and management, and the infrastructure maintenance, looking after the pipe work in the ground, etc., and your meter. Whereas the retailer, the services that you're getting from your new retailer will be customer service, billing, debt recovery, meter reading, AMR services, and any ancillary services around water saving measures, for instance. So hopefully that gives you a flavour really of how your bill is made up and what kind of opportunities switching to a new retailer might present. What we're effectively saying is that none of the wholesaler function is going to change. That's still going to be delivered by the water company in your region. And the only things here which could change are the retailer functions. And we'll move into what we expect some of those changes to look like as we go through this presentation today. So as we've said, this is a new emergent market, and obviously there are challenges for the retailer in this as well. The partners in this project, CCS, ESPO, NEPO, TEC, West Mercia Energy and YPO, have had lots and lots of communication with many of the water companies that are now in the marketplace, the water retailers and the wholesalers. And these are just some of the challenges that we perceive for the new retail market. So they are, as we've said, these are new companies to the retail only function. So some of the comments that have come back from customers in particular have said, how do we know who's got a track record of performance, or do we have concerns over, do we have confidence issues around being able to deliver? As we've said as well, that the new retailers have had to make this division either from an existing water company or that have been set up in the marketplace specifically to access this market. So questions around, can accurate billing be produced? Can bills be issued on time? And can customer support be delivered? Have all been raised. There could be issues around cash flow. The water that customers consume has to be bought by the retailer from the wholesaler around a month in advance. And it might be that those customers don't actually pay for their water till maybe 3 months later. So there's a 4-month cash flow window there that must be bridged in some way. And as we've already seen from the previous graphic, there is a very low margin on the water retail business. So, you know, if only 7% of the bill is there to fund the retailer, then obviously there may need to be some efficiencies made around that. And as we've said already on numerous times, this is a brand new market. So what kind of concerns have the retailers got about that? Is there going to be competition for customers' business? And is the focus going to be around growing the existing customer base or focus on retention of current customers? And also, as we said there are 20 licenses that have been granted. Can the market sustain 20 retailers? So this is the kind of thing that I'm alluding to when I say that we're expecting lots of change over the next 12 to 24 months. And as we've seen already, it is already a changing marketplace. There are business case reviews taking place all the time. I gave you some examples earlier about Thames Water, for instance, not exiting the wholesale market, 360 being formed, but is only going to focus on out of Yorkshire area, and Severn Trent and the Dee Valley water situation. So now we'll just talk about the Public Sector Water Framework, RM3790, and the benefits for you. So I'll hand you over to Julie Braidwood from CCS.
Okay, so just before I start, I just want to mention that the RM3790 is a reference number, and before you want to access this framework, you must quote this reference number to the supplier so that you will get the best benefits from this framework. As Rob has mentioned on a number of occasions, this is a collaborative framework. We're very proud to have 6 major PBOs collectively working on this framework. This means, as a public sector organisation, you don't have to think about who you're going to choose. This is the only public sector solution for water. So you just have one solution to go to. It can also be used by any public sector organisation. It provides the flexibility to engage with the market in a low-cost, high-value manner. This means that it's a much lower cost to you than doing the ODU yourself, but you get much more of the benefits coming associated with it. There's also, as always, we would always recommend aggregating your demand with other public sector customers to drive down the retail pricing so you can get a much better deal. There's also, as part of this framework, opportunities to deliver water saving measures as part of the overall procurement, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. And now we'll come on to the numerous framework benefits. It ensures compliance with public contracts regulations. We're preparing template customer documents which are prepared for your use. We've put together a huge customer guidance document for your use, template specifications, template further competition documents, so that you're having to do as little as possible. And also you have a choice of routes to market. You can go to any one of the PBOs that are listed on this framework agreement. Naturally, there will be some cost savings. As Rob's alluded to earlier, the cost savings in terms of the supplier margin will be relatively low, but you will be getting additional measures. The best way to deliver savings measures is through the water efficiency. You will also get benefits from not having to run your own procurement exercise through ODU procurement, and it also provides ongoing contract management cost savings. For example, consolidated billing, electronic billing, and only one single retailer to contact. There are many larger organisations that have multiple suppliers to deal with, so this will mean that they'll have only one point of contact. So I'm just going to give you a rundown of how the contractual structure works. So that's the framework agreement and the suppliers. And the relationship, the contractual relationship that we have with the suppliers is called the framework agreement. That sets the terms and conditions. The benefit of this collaborative framework is that we get to set the terms and conditions, the suppliers don't. We set what they're going to do and how they're going to provide it, and we carry out those tests to ensure they are good suppliers in terms of their financial stability. We also measure and monitor them on their key performance indicators and make sure they supply us with good management information to make sure that they are providing the services to you. And then, of course, the relationship, the contractual relationship you have, and that's called a call-off agreement. The activity you do to carry out your procurement is called a further competition, and the resulting contract is the contract you have directly with the supplier. You don't have a contractual relationship with your PBO, it goes directly through to your supplier. And now we'll come on to the lotting structure for this framework. Lot 1 is the standard water supply and wastewater services. This is what all of you currently have, the services you currently utilise as a set of retail services. And so this is just the standard if meeting your compliance for public sector procurement regulations. Lot 2 is our ancillary services. This is a key one for us, and naturally yourselves. Water resilience is key for this country in the light of climate change. So we really wanted to make sure people had access to services. We carried out a customer survey before, and 98% of customers said that they really wanted access to a set of independent suppliers for their ancillary services. Such as metering, automated meter reading, there's leak detection on there. It's really important that we drive water efficiency. It was the backbone of our business case to make sure that we could deliver water savings and cost savings associated. water efficiency will deliver you 10 to 20% savings, cost savings and consumption savings, whereas the supply margin will be considerably less. So we are really keen that customers take these services up. The last lot is the one-stop shop, which is a combination of the lot 1 and 2 services. So where you want one supplier, one main supplier to carry out your water supply and sewage services, and also to reduce your water consumption, you can do that through this lot 3. We should note that there is a wealth of information on our framework webpage, where you can see the list of services that are included and see the scope of those different lots. And there is a supplier matrix where you can see which suppliers are available to offer you services on each one of those lots. All of the customer documentation, the standard terms and conditions, and the customer guidance documents can also be downloaded from the framework page.
Okay, thanks, Julie. So now I'd like to just take you through who the suppliers are on the framework. So if you remember earlier in the presentation, we said there were 20 suppliers who had water and sewage supply licenses granted to them, and there they are. The ones that aren't greyed out are the ones who have been appointed to the framework. So if we just tidy that up, and we have there 10 of the suppliers who have water and sewage supply licenses, and we have appointed 3 companies who are only active in lot 2. So these are companies who don't have a water and sewage supply license, but they have satisfied us around delivery of ancillary services. And there's a quick summary really of the lots and how those companies have been applied to the lots. So on lot 1 we have 8 suppliers, on lot 2 we have 11 suppliers, and on lot 3 we have 9 suppliers. So the next part of the presentation is about accessing the framework and creating the competition for your organisation's water. So what should happen next? I suppose this is a little summary really of what's to happen and what has already happened. So what you should really be looking at now is beginning to prepare your meter data for competition. And I'll go into that in a little detail further in this presentation. But what actually has happened so far is that between the 6th of March and the 20th of March, your existing supplies were automatically switched to your new nominated retailer for commencement from the 1st of April. So you won't have seen any billing yet, but you've probably had some information that this is happening. So for example, if you were a Severn Trent or United Utilities water customer, you will have been moved now to the new retailer, Water Plus. And if you were an Anglian Water customer previously, you will now have been moved to the new retailer, Anglian Water Business National Limited. And that's at least until the CMA approve the formation of WAVE. Pricing for this year will be as already announced. So the pricing will be as if none of this retailer split has actually taken place. So in that regard, it's not punitive not to be on a contract. But obviously going through the framework and having your supplies competed for could deliver you cost savings. Letters have been sent to every single billing address explaining that the retailer will be changing from the 1st of April, so you should have seen those already. I think they began being sent out from around about the middle of February. So every billing address should have received one of those. And there's some new terminology for you to learn and use. A SPID is a supplier point identifier, and there are separate SPIDs for water and wastewater. Think of the SPID if you deal with electricity or gas already, like the NPRN in gas or the NPAN in electricity. It's a unique identifier that points at where the meter is located. CMOS is the Central Market Operating System. This is the core database which contains details of all meters and acts as the enabler mechanism to supplier switching. So as your water company, prior to the 1st of April, was getting your data ready to enter the retail market, they had to upload the data into CMOS. And that is what generates the SPID. If you've got trade effluent discharge points, then you will also have DPIDs, the trade effluent discharge point identifier. And this links to the wastewater SPID and can't be switched separately. And you'll also hear the term exit the market, which sounds a negative thing, but it's actually the wholesaler confirming that they will no longer engage in non-household retail activities.
Now we'll talk about the actual customer call-offs or further competitions, however you'd like to call it. So as we talked about before, the framework agreement is the relationship that we have with the suppliers, and the call-off arrangement is what you have with your suppliers. So when you come to do your further competitions, you have the rights, if you're required to do so, to add your own bespoke terms and conditions. And also in terms of your order form and your specification, you will identify your specific requirements. We will have a template example specification that you can utilise to kind of draft your specification and to give you some guidance on the terms and conditions. These are standard terms and conditions that we have put together so that you're not having to do all the expensive legal work. Suppliers, if you are wanted to do a further competition, you must invite all of the suppliers. There is no direct award capability on this framework. It's a brand new market, so there is further competition only, and you must invite all of the suppliers on each of the lots or services that you are requesting. Suppliers must respond to all requests. However, they do have the choice to decline to quote for your customer requirements if they do not feel that they can meet those requirements. You can carry out the further competition utilising your own systems, or you can utilise the CCS framework solution, which I'll talk about in a little while. You can enter into long-term supply service arrangements for up to 4 years. You can anything from 1 to 4 years. You can carry out your further competition contract for. So there are various options. You can speak to your preferred PBO to determine your requirements, and we will run a further competition on your behalf. You can speak to your preferred PBO about your requirements, and we'll give you the support to run your own further competition. Or CCS is carrying out a further competition through e-auction later on in June, so you can combine your volumes in an aggregated portfolio with other public sector customers to create a larger basket. I think that the main thing to point out here is there will be support for you at every way that you need to access the framework. So as we've talked about before, CCS has an e-sourcing suite that you can utilise. It's entirely free for you to utilise it. It's a system called IBM Mtauris to manage major framework procurements, further competitions and e-auctions. It's open to all customers. You just need to register, and there's also some free training to use the system. But like I've said before, you can use your own system or your local PBO system. Each of the suppliers on the framework already has accessed Mtauris from the tender phase of the framework, so they're up and ready to go as of the 29th of March, so you can literally start today. You should make sure when you're utilising the mTORIS system, once you've registered, you'll need to make sure you have the correct contact set up to receive further competition notifications. We always recommend using a generic email address. So if one of your staff, moves on or leaves or isn't in, you're not going to miss any of the notifications on there. There are also some customer webinar training sessions available. Again, these are free, and the customer team, the e-sourcing team, are always available to answer any questions that you have or any technical difficulties that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Julie. So in terms of your data, I mentioned earlier just getting your data ready to enter the marketplace with. So we're advising customers currently to start preparing data to enter into the marketplace. So the data that you will require as a minimum is this. You will need your water supply SPID, your wastewater supply SPID, your meter serial number if known, the size of your meter if known, the site address and the site name, including postcode, your business name, if that's different to the site name, and your annual water consumption and discharge volumes for each account. So this will provide enough information for the water retailer to be able to cost out the service to you. As Julie said, we're going to be running a number of collaborative procurement exercises through this framework. So it might be that you just want to include your volumes and your supply sites along with other public sector customers to form a large basket to make that more attractive to retailers. Once you've done that and prepared your data, as we said on the routes to market, speak to your preferred PBO and discuss your further competition, how you would like to tackle that, whether you'd like to be part of an e-auction, whether you would like to run the further competition yourself, or whether you would like your PBO to handle that for you. And in going through that process, you can also access the customer toolkit that's been prepared with some standard documents for you to consider, and which will help guide you through the process. There's as Julie said right at the start of this process, there's a very comprehensive customer guidance note that's available that should sort of demystify the whole process for you and help you deliver what you need to deliver for your organisation around water and wastewater supply services. So finally, we've got a bit of a summary of RM3790's framework benefits. So the key points really to pick out of this are here on the screen for you now. So compliance with all appropriate public contract regulations are built into it. It's free to access and use for your procurement. So therefore it reduces your procurement costs. So as Julie mentioned earlier, the expensive legal costs around running your own procurement, particularly as the most public sector organisations, ODU thresholds could come into play. That's a very expensive procurement to handle yourselves, which is why we've done this, to save public sector collectively an awful lot of money. So there could be water retail cost savings coming out the back of this, but we've already identified that the retail element of what's existing in your bill is a relatively low amount. It will allow you to consolidate both billing and potentially multiple suppliers that you might currently have. And it also gives you, through lots 2 and 3, the opportunity to implement water saving measures to deliver greater cost savings. It will also give you access to EDI billing. I think all of the suppliers on the framework will provide you with EDI, electronic data interchange billing files. You'll also be able to get better management information over your water consumption. and actually determine what kind of regular billing you would like through that process as well. And of course, you may be able to realise internal organisational efficiencies as well through dealing with less suppliers, handling less invoices, for instance. So there could be savings internally that you can realise. So really, we're getting to the point now where we've said everything that we want to say in this webinar, so we'll move on to any questions that you have raised. We can see that we've got 20 questions from you, so thank you very much for those. Just reading through these now. Thank you, James, for yours. James is just asking if you can have a copy of the presentation. What we'll actually do at the end of the presentation, following this presentation, we'll create a Q&A document with answers to all your questions, but also on there will be a link to YouTube where this presentation will be there again. This webinar is being recorded now, so that will be on YouTube very soon. So we'll send you a link to that as well, so you can watch it again or share with colleagues who maybe couldn't attend the webinar live. I've got a question from Emma here. Presume that we do not need to issue a contract notice if we run a further competition for the framework.
That's correct, because we have carried out the OG notice. We have done all of that EU procurement compliance work on your behalf. All you have to do is defer the competition under the framework agreement, so you don't have to issue a contract notice.
Thank you, Julie. Emma's also asked a secondary question. Does the framework cover Scotland or is it England only?
It covers the whole of the UK. But we must note that obviously anybody that lives in Wales cannot currently access the market.
Emma has asked another question there. I couldn't find the switching sheet template under documents. I assume, Emma, that means that you've gone to the CCS website.
Yeah,
so,
if the switching template isn't on there currently, I will make sure that that is uploaded very shortly. We've had a few different iterations of the documents over the last few days, so we'll make sure, thanks for letting me know that it's not there currently, so I'll make sure that that's uploaded very soon.
Yeah, a couple more questions. Can you confirm there are no restrictions around using our own procurement system to run the further competition?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use any system that you like. We make the RM tourist system available because not everybody has their own procurement systems, but you can use any system that you like. And the suppliers, as long as the supplier knows how to register onto your systems, or even if it's just kind of an email-based system, you can use whatever system you like. All of the contact details for the suppliers are on our website. They're all listed with the contact details there for you to contact them.
Yeah, and to add to what Julie's just said there, the key thing is that you link this back to RM3790, so the suppliers know that you're accessing them through the framework. Another question here, are we able to state our own SLAs, KPIs under the further competition?
Yes, like we've said earlier, the call-off order form is your call-off order form, and the contract terms and conditions are yours. We have set some KPIs, but for our framework purposes, you can utilise those, or you can add in your own KPIs as you see fit. You must, however, indicate in your specification that these are the measures you would like to measure the suppliers against, so that they can see the entirety of what's being required from them in delivering that service. If any supplier decides that they don't feel that they can meet some of those SLAs or KPIs, then they have the right to decline, but you must declare them upfront in your specification when you're doing a further competition, so that they know what they're bidding for and bidding against, so that they can price accordingly.
Thank you for that question. Emma again, would it be possible to explain how the weightings were decided for the lots and provide further guidance on weightings for lot 3?
In terms of the weightings, we utilised, we did a customer survey back in 2016, and we sought guidance from our customers through that and through our own customer stakeholder groups, and asked those customers what would you feel would be the most preferential, and those responses were that price was most important for the supply, and quality would be most important for the quality of the ancillary services. So literally that was entirely customer led. When it comes down to the sections underneath each of those price and quality elements, we had the ones that we utilised in the framework agreement, and in Schedule 5, I believe it is, there is a set of standard quality and price criteria. Underneath those quality criteria, you can utilise any of those criterion that you require, but it must be within those guidelines of the 30%. If it's 30% for quality, for example, you have a 10% margin either way to increase that by 10% or decrease it by 10%. But you have the choice to choose which of those quality elements you would like to score against, and you have a choice to determine what weighting you would like to apply against those quality criteria.
Thank you, Julie. David's asked the question, can 360 be used by organisations in YWBS areas? This is an interesting question. It's one that we've been asking for some clarification on. I understand the answer to your question, David, is yes. 360 will be looking to quote through this and respond through this, but that mechanism as yet hasn't been formally described to us. So all I can say is the indication at this time is yes, but watch this space. As we've said all the way through this, it's an emergent marketplace. It's all new. There is lots of change happening. There's been lots of change happening for probably the last sort of 6, 8, 9 months, and we're expecting change to happen over the course of the next year moving forward as well with retailers in the marketplace. So all I would say to customers at the moment is don't necessarily get too hung up over who the retailers are at the moment in the marketplace, because I think we will see some change as we move forward through time. Okay, thanks for that question, David. Another question from Emma. Can you confirm that we can run a PQQ and ITT under the framework with our own specific questions?
Okay, so in terms of the pre-qualification, that work has already been done by the framework agreement. If you have any additional requirements which you want to include in your invitation to further competition, yes, you can specify, again, as I said in my specification earlier in the last question, when you're writing your specification, you say here are my requirements and here's what I would expect from my supplier. And then when it comes to your further competition, absolutely, we would expect you to write your own questions. We can have some examples for you to use, but you can definitely script your own, but you must describe what the requirement is and how the supplier should answer, giving them guidance to each step. The customer guidance document that we have for you takes you through those processes and even gives you kind of a draft, an example template. So it will tell you, here's what the requirement is, here's how you need to answer, and here's what you will be measured against. In each of those questions you ask, you have to tell them what the quality score is, what the weighting is, and how you are going to score them against their answers, whether it's a scoring range from 25, 50, 75, 100, and you must give guidance as to how you're going to be scoring against those. But absolutely, you can ask your own specific questions. Each customer is unique, and each customer has a different requirement in terms of their water supply and ancillary services.
Question from Pete. Can you please advise how the framework is funded and if there is a charge to access it?
There is no charge to customers for accessing this framework. We recharge the suppliers directly, and it is written into the framework agreement itself. that they are not allowed to pass those charges on to customers. It's quite a key point that we make in our framework agreements in CCS. So there is no charge for you to access this framework agreement. You could literally, right after this webinar, you could access our webpage, download the documents and issue it, and there is not a single reason for you not to be able to do so, and there is no charge to do so. It's freely available for everyone in the public sector. Like I said earlier, it's the only public sector solution, so yeah, please do go and help yourselves.
Another question from Emma, how do we find out the framework pricing?
The framework pricing will be made available to customers. You will have to write in to request that. The supplier's pricing is kept separate from other suppliers. There'll be the prices that they bid in the framework agreement were the maximum prices. So we will send you that pricing document so that when you do your further competition and you get those prices back, you know that those prices should never exceed what has been bid at framework level. What may be the case, say like if you might be used to electricity and gas, you'll get here's your price per kilowatt hour. Because of the nature of the water market and the fact that the wholesale prices, the wholesale element of your bill is still regulated and maintained by Ofwat, the only price you're going to be getting is based on your retail activity. So all of that wholesale costs we can't do anything about, and neither can your retail supplier. So when you go for a further competition to do your framework pricing, we have a bid sheet and a pricing template that you can utilise as well. And that is that you'll be asking them to tell them what your wholesale prices are, and that's a fixed cost that they can't do anything about. And then they will give the bit you're competing on is the cost of their retail service, and that's what we have measured in the framework agreement to make sure that there is a ceiling that you will never that those charges that they bid to you should never be exceeded.
Okay. Hope that clarifies that point. Next question is from Pete. Is the framework dynamic, i.e. can new retailers enter from time to time?
No, dynamic purchasing wasn't utilised in this framework. It may be that we decide to utilise that in future. In terms of the numbers of suppliers, dynamic purchasing is quite often utilised for commodities such as laptops and PCs and phones, etc. So where there's hundreds of suppliers in the market. So no, not at the moment, but we do. It is a 3+1 year framework agreement. So there's a pricing review will be starting in 2020 for all the wholesalers go through this 5-year pricing review. So in 2019, in 2 years' time, we should have a better picture about what's happening in the market and what pricing changes are going to happen. Does the market look wildly different to the way it does now? And so if that is the case in 2019, we can then go ahead and procure something new, start procuring something new so that we can have a new framework in place for 2020.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Another question from Emma. What obligations are on the customer to report back to CCS, i.e. data, KPIs, savings, disputes?
There's no obligation on the customer to report anything back to CCS. That is the job of the supplier. They have a requirement to report every month on every single billing line activity that they carry out. They have to report to us on all of the further competitions that they are bidding on and what prices they've quoted so that we can keep an eye on what they're doing. In terms of your own KPIs, you can set those KPIs yourselves, you can set the targets yourselves, and they can report to you if you so wish. We are doing that work anyway, so if you don't have the resource to monitor those contracts and monitor KPIs, we will be doing that for you anyway, but we will maintain our responsibility to be an escalation point. If you're having specific issues with suppliers, we will pick up those escalations if things aren't working. We do expect there to be teething problems, of course. It's a brand new market for everyone. It was a brand new thing for all of us PBOs. It's a brand new thing for the suppliers, of course. And so, of course, it will be a new thing for you guys. So please do keep in touch with us if you want to feed back any issues or just to keep us informed. but there is no requirement for you to report anything to us. It's the responsibility of the supplier to do so.
Thanks, Julie. Another question from Emma. Do the framework call-off terms give others outside of customer and supplier rights over the contract?
No. No. The call-off contract, sorry, I was just rereading the question because I wasn't quite sure I understood. There are no rights of anyone else over the frame. Like I've said earlier, right at the beginning, the framework call-off contract is directly between you and the supplier. There may be subcontractors which they should identify to you in the further competition. We have a list of all the subcontractors that they determine they will be using to deliver their services, where they are using them. And as part of your further competition, you can request that they tell you which subcontractors they are utilising. But the subcontractors have no rights in this call-off contract.
Thank you. Question from Howard. Where can I find out more information about the CCS e-auction? What contract term will the CCS auctions be for?
Okay, so we're still kind of in the throes of getting the final documentation ready. We've alluded to it, and we're getting the documents ready. So we should hopefully in the next couple of weeks have some more formal documentation to issue, and then that will be available shortly. So the how long will it be for? The CCS auction, we're going to be going for 3 years. We've got some standard elements to the further competition. So it's going to be a 3-year contract, for example, and it will be a collaborative basket. So once you're in, and you have to commit. There will be no, because the suppliers will be bidding on a committed volume. If you decided, oh, I don't like that supplier, you couldn't just then cancel your commitment because they would have bid on those volumes being committed. So it's a 3-year auction we're going to be doing.
Okay, thanks. And there's a supplementary question there from Andy, which asks, how many auctions do you intend to run, and do you intend to circulate a schedule for this?
I don't think we'll be running on a monthly basis by any stretch of the imagination, but we are, like I said, we're going out for one in June, end of June, early July, and it undoubtedly will be going ahead again towards the end of the calendar year. Of course, that's just the CCS e-auctions. Any one of the other 5 PBOs may be running e-auctions for their customers, or any customer that wants to access this framework agreement. So if there is a significant demand, again, obviously, we can do a further competition. We can do an e-auction on your behalf if there is significant demand. There's a question here. Oops. Sorry, I've just clicked on the wrong thing. Just bear with me 1 second. Another question by Howard. By participating in the CCS e-auction, will there be consultation with interested contracting authorities about amendments and enhancements to standard SLAs and KPIs? Yes, we will have some draft further competition information to circulate to interested parties. Naturally, you would need to see what the specification says before you're going to commit yourselves, because there will be certain measures around billing and metering and data and customer service levels. So as you can imagine, lots of people have lots of different requirements, and we can't do an e-auction on behalf of each and every single one of you. So we're going to have to rationalise it down to 2, possibly 3 different specification types. But then you can then choose which of those specifications you want to go ahead with, and we will also put together the set of KPIs that we'll be measuring against. We'd really value and welcome your feedback on that. We've got a kind of a draft ready to circulate. If you want to be part of it and have a look at the documents we're going to be sending out, please do email water@crowncommercial.gov.uk and let us know that you'd like to be part of the or you're interested in the e-auction, and then we can include you in any documents we send out.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Pete has asked, is there a specification for the EDI billing? Will it import into systems, link, team, etc.? When we spoke to all of the retailers and suppliers, Pete, we spoke to them about EDI in Tradercom's 26 version 3 format, which is the sort of standard format that you will be currently receiving gas and electricity data in. And the responses that we got back was yes, that will be supported. So of course, if that is important to you, then you can build that into your specification, that is one of the things that you absolutely must have. And I can understand from your perspective and probably the perspective of most public sector customers why that would be important, because of the internal cost savings. And traditionally, not many water companies have offered EDI to their customers. So we're actually running over time now slightly. We've been doing the webinar for an hour now. So on behalf of Julie and myself and the other collaborative PBO partners in the framework, ESPO, NEPO, Tech and West Mercia Energy, thank you for joining us today. If you have any other questions, please contact your preferred PBO directly, who will be only too pleased to assist. As I mentioned, we'll run through all of the questions and try to get answers to all of those and get those out to you by email. We've got all your email addresses. Thank you for registering with those today. And we'll also be sending out a link to this webinar on YouTube, like I said, that you can either watch again or you can share with colleagues who weren't able to join the webinar live. So from Julie and myself and everyone at CCS and YPO, have a great rest of the day. Thanks again for joining us.